Hi Amar, how's it going?
It's going. How about yourself?
I heard you were angry. What are you angry about?
Oh man, Chaz, it's a Get Mad Monday. Did you know that?
What's Get Mad Monday? Is this like an American thing?
I mean, come on, you don't have to do that. Um, I,
Sorry,
I mean,
sorry. Is it
I
an
thought
LA
we.
thing?
Wow, wow. I mean, we have the Olympics coming up here in a couple of years. Behave yourself, okay? Listen, I'm just, I'm
Oh, oh,
tired.
oh no!
Chaz. It
Are you
was.
are you gonna say your catchphrase? Oh, who cares?
Who cares?
Getting
Look,
it, gonna get in there
I mean.
early.
Listen, man, in the after, I mean, I think right from when the race started all the way through like 24 hours later, my chats, my social media is flooded with people getting mad. So, Shez, in honor of that, I made you a top three get mad list, and I had some fanfare planned, but that's the high level production
I
we
mean,
have
I'm
going
surprised you've
on.
only got three.
I only got three. I mean, I just, again, we're trying to keep it slick here if
Civil.
you can. Yes, if you can. Number three,
Yep.
the VSC car at the end of the race. It got
Wow.
every
That
mad.
that got in at number three.
That did get in on number three.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and I think we'll get into this later, but I just don't think we were able to see everything enough. But everyone's just getting mad. I mean, there are people making videos about this is the worst VSC car ever, ever, ever. I'm like, oh God, can we also not live in the moment? Like, why does everything have to become an inference on forever? Like, no,
It's true. Some
greatest
some
driver.
things are some things are better left unsaid, and hyperbole is the answer to everything, Omar. So
Right.
that's
I'm gonna
definitely
see if
I
you
would have got angry at that as well if I cared enough.
You didn't, but maybe this one you will, right? And I observed a lot of Lewis Hamilton fans, and I'm going to be polite here and not use the C word there, but Lewis Hamilton fans, just mad about everything. Not mad about not Charles not getting a penalty on lap one, Max not getting a penalty at all for evidently like four infringements that he had against Lewis. And then Lewis himself getting a 10-second penalty, which I would argue was the correct penalty. And if you have to blame anyone, you have to blame Ferrari for that. But just Lewis Hamilton fans are just mad, Chaz. They're just mad. What is it? Come
Does
on,
it,
you speak on behalf of all of Lewis fans. Come on.
yeah, I feel like that's a little unfair, like painting everybody with the same brush, Omar. Like that there's some not there's some people out there with who aren't completely with it in all fan bases.
That's true. That is true.
Are
But
you not one of them? Are you not like a
I do
completely
know.
unreasonable
Dude,
Ferrari fan?
some of the,
Okay,
well,
I
at
mean, I
least
guess we're gonna
one.
find out.
Oh man, we have had nothing to be happy about. Like my only thing was with the Leclerc stuff.
What are you
Like,
talking
can we
about?
just have one thing?
I
Like,
mean,
huh?
you've had two podiums in
No,
two
nothing. We
races
haven't even.
now.
I mean, and everyone's fighting about this as if that was a race win that went. Come on, like, come on, like,
Yeah,
just
that's
let us have one little thing.
this is Amar Bingo. We've had who cares and come on within the first 3 minutes of this video. What else
But
you got? What else you got? What else are you angry about?
I my number one, and then I'll let you take the show back.
It's
Number one
not my
thing that,
show.
that people are getting mad about evidently also spilled into the press conference after the race, which
Right.
is Lando not giving Oscar 3 points back, and that's why he got booed. It's just mind blowing to me that that is where we're at with the state of
Yeah,
it. We're
yeah.
gonna definitely get into that, but like I'm just not sure why people are mad about this. Like I
I
don't
feel like
understand why.
that was very Mexico, though, wasn't it? Like for some reason, the Mexican fans were very, very
I doubt it's
unhappy
Mexican
about that.
fans. I don't want to hold this up again. We'll get into it, but
Well,
I
I
don't want to
mean,
hold this up against
but
any
we've been to
country.
like
Like
four races now since we were in Monza. I haven't heard people
I have a
booing.
theory for that, but I just don't want to blame it on the Mexican people because they're wonderful people. They have a beautiful country and excellent weather to enjoy. Like you can't tell me they're invested in the nuances of Formula One that boil down to like 3 points from Monza. Like I'm not going to buy that. I'm just not going to buy that. I think that's someone starting somewhere. Some.
I think the best thing I saw all weekend was somebody holding up a massive sign in the baseball stadium saying Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton. If they give you strategy, don't listen. I thought that was brilliant.
That was brilliant. No, so yeah. This is just I know people don't get mad. It was a great race, Shaz. What do you think about the race? That was a good race,
I
no?
was entertained, thoroughly entertained from start to
Yeah.
finish, and you know all of the doom and gloom beforehand that Mexico is all about the first corner, and after that it just becomes a procession. None of that happened. There wasn't a huge amount of passing, but actually what passing there was pretty spectacular. There was some controversy, and I thought this race highlighted how good it is when there's different strategies at play, because having one stops and two stops, and whether someone was going to do it or whether somebody else was going to follow, brilliant. I really loved it. And there was enough of a step, I thought, between the two tyre compounds that were actually used. I know no one's going to go for the hard in the end, other than Alex Albon, who seems to love the hard compound tyre in every scenario to start with. But there was enough of a gap in performance between the two that actually made some of the strategies really fun to follow. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, this was a great race. I think this was probably the best race we've had in I don't know how many races, right? And we've come on here and talked about how difficult it is to have an exciting race because you cannot overtake, and it's this generation of cars. And even at a track like Austin from last week, I would have hoped that we would have seen more overtaking because the track did offer a lot of that, but it wasn't to be. And came into Mexico kind of thinking the same thing, right? I mean, Russell lent his voice to this, right? It's turning into a sort of a first corner championship, and Fred had gone with first. What is it? A quali championship earlier in the season. So, it's a really good race. Jazz, I have a question for you. What is the meaning of all these tires? Because now this is the second race in a row where the soft tire seems to last longer and does better than the medium tires, and I don't understand what's going on. Like, how is it this way when we've not been trained to think of these things this way? What's going on here?
Yeah, but I think it's been like this all season. I think you're getting to the end of a rule set, so the downforce that the cars are producing is at its highest, and we all know that downforce protects tires. And Pirelli have also sort of responded to that by making the tyres more durable, and it just means that I think that the gap between different tyres is much less. And Mexico, in and of itself, presents a particular challenge because it's at high altitude. The downforce is actually much less, so the load applied to the tyres is consummately less as well. So the soft tyre worked really well. It was a nice Goldilocks tyre, but the medium and definitely the hard, because there wasn't enough load, they never got enough tyre temperature until they just overheated. So you got no usable performance, you just got overheating with those tyres. But I think that was very Mexico specific. I think in Austin it's a slightly different problem in that I think the tyre allocations were they did the step between as in the step between tyre compounds between the medium and the hard. There was a 2-step gap, but I think they probably needed to shift the entire compound range a bit further towards the C6, and then make it more of a difficult question for the teams, because really if you're using the soft as a tire, you shouldn't be able to use it for half the race like they did in Austin last weekend. So that's kind of where I land on it. But I mean Pirelli throughout the time that they've had the monopoly have either made tires too fragile and then said, oh, this is what the FIA have asked for, or they've made them too durable. But actually what you want, the actual aim of this is that you get a gradual reduction in performance in tyre that is shorter, as in the amount of time that the performance lasts for is less in the soft tyre and more in the hard tyre, but the peak performance is higher in the soft tyre and less in the hard tyre. And there should be a grade between all of the compounds, but Pirelli haven't really nailed that. And you could argue, well, they've had less testing, teams pile on downforce across the season even, so it's really difficult for a tyre that worked at the beginning of the season to necessarily work in the same way at the end of the season, which is why, remember, you always have those blowouts in the middle of the season at Silverstone. It always happens there. So I think it's really tricky for Pirelli. Listen, Omar, I'll be honest with you. I don't think anyone came to listen to us yabber on about tires. So I'm going to get into something that you said a bit earlier, which was that George Russell said that Formula One has become a race to the first corner. And boy, did everybody take that seriously
Oh,
in Mexico. And there were definitely some controversial moments. And I want to talk about some
oh,
of those controversial moments because they were included in your angriness. Anger is what I saw on Twitter. There was accusation, counter accusation. Your boy's lazy. Your boy doesn't know when to turn
gets
in.
away with penalties. Yeah,
The FIA just have it in for Lewis Hamilton. They let Max get
angry.
away with everything. Ah, okay. So let's have a look at some of these. Okay,
Some
and
of these we're gonna need
but I've just
10 hours.
got two that I'm going to look at.
Oh,
Just
oh my God!
just just two,
Look at
um,
you being biased.
because I'm being biased. Yes, but hopefully I'm not being biased. So we're going to look at some instances. So first of all, I'm just going to cold ask you what you thought. So lap
Uh,
one, turn one, Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc. I'm gonna kind of leave Max out of this because Max was squeezed off into the corner, left his braking super late, locked up both tires, went
I
off on
think
the
he was
grass.
aiming for for the
I
grass.
don't
I
know
think
what he was aiming for. I think he was aiming for turn 12 at Austin again, and he ended up almost hitting the ball, but not quite hitting the ball, getting himself back on track, and giving back some places. So I think it's not particularly controversial. He wasn't particularly nice about the way he gave the position back to Lewis, but whatever, he did give it back. But more interesting was Charles. So Lewis and Charles go into that corner. Charles cuts the corner, comes back ahead of everybody, gives the position back to Lando, doesn't give it back to Lewis. Q, Team LH, whatever else you want to call them, being very, very angry that Leclerc didn't give that position back. To that you say, Amar, what?
To that I say it's turn one, lap one. This is how this stuff works. It's not been look, if you're a Lewis Hamilton fan, I 100% get why you felt upset. Had it been a non-Ferrari driver next to Lewis, I might be upset myself. At the same time, it's just but it is I mean, you cannot rule that out, right? I mean, and also, I mean, I saw something about this. Something happened at the end of the race, right? With the when the double yellow was waved, and evidently Max didn't slow down there. Which again, these are things that Red Bull would be on the on the whatever the line is
For
to the
Ferrari aren't going
FIA
to
there,
complain
whatever.
about their own
They
driver,
would.
are
They're
they?
not
They're
gonna.
not going to
But
be like,
that's my
oh,
point exactly. They're
Charles,
not gonna complain.
quick, call
They're
the
not.
FIA
Oh,
about
but
Charles.
also, yeah, but also, I mean, you saw the grave risk in giving up a position there, right as that happened. So yes, I think it. Look, I'm gonna be honest here. Even though I'm a Leclerc fan, I think that was a bit cheeky. All right, having reviewed the tape again, so to speak, and having seen it, it's a bit puzzling to me that he took that runoff area. Maybe he just assumed that there would be someone coming from behind and maybe wrecking his race. I can also see that as a fair assumption. But I also think that again in the heat of the moment where you were four wide. At one point, Charles was squeezed. I mean, he was essentially going to get sandwiched into one of these things where you've seen the driver that's in the middle that just really cannot do anything. Had not Max not taken off for the runoff area, so everything happens too fast. And I would just like for us to apply a little bit of I don't know, patience in that regard, given that all these drivers are heading for that one turn four wide, and this is it is what it is. So I would say if it was not lap one, that's probably a penalty. But given that it's lap one and there's chaos anyway, again you have the other guy running off, going on the route where the tractors are running, right? So I think that's kind of the context of it. So I would say overall, just about over the line, I would say.
Over
You
the
are not
line.
expecting.
Over the line. What does that mean?
Yeah, I think that was just a little bit about over the line in terms of gaining an advantage. But Leclerc did slow down. He gave Lando the position back. It's
Okay, so
fine.
okay, so
I mean,
this
ironically, there's something happened to Lewis a few laps later, and he didn't do the same thing. But yeah, that
to,
is
to,
what it is.
to this is where I think it becomes a little bit not unfair, but where it becomes a bit controversial, right? If we're going to say it's a turn one, lap one incident, then it was fair game. You could just cut the corner and head off into the distance. Why are you giving the position back to Lando? Why is Max giving all those positions back? It's lap one,
Well,
turn
yeah,
one.
let me explain that. There's an answer for that. Because again, we're gonna look, we're never going to agree if you're Lewis Hamilton fans and Charles Leclerc fans. You're never going to agree on who's ahead. If you want to pull up a still shot where Lewis was ahead, that's fine. If you want to, this
I
shares comes
will.
back to what
Amar,
we've
you
talked
know
about
I will.
all season, where we talk about the apex, and I always ask you, what defines the apex when they're going at damn near 200 miles an hour, right? It is going to be a matter of judgment. And if you are in one camp or the other, you're going to say, "Oh, my guy was ahead, the other guy was."
Okay.
So I would just say, let's just call that for a second, whatever it is, right? That's the context, Shez. And so, really, what Leclerc had to do, what Lewis would have had to do had he done the same thing, what Max would have had to do had he done the same thing, is by going off track, he jumped Lando, and so he gave that position back. Now you can debate whether Lewis was ahead or not, and I know a lot of Lewis Hamilton fans are already in the comments saying Lewis was ahead, Lewis was ahead. Okay, fine, that's a different issue there. But to your question, Shez, why did he give the position back to Lando? That's why it was just trying to restore that kind of order.
Yeah, so I would argue that actually well,
one.
okay, but then if you're saying that Lando was ahead, well then Lewis was ahead. Here we go. Here's the images. I don't know if I'm.
Again. Well, by the way, I cannot see the image. Number one,
but you
number
will be
two.
able to,
Okay,
you will
like
be
I
able
said,
to
you
see
just-
them. You will be able to see them in a second.
But again, a still image again is not, races are not run in still images, Shez. They're just not. You have to look at everything as it happens in real time.
I can only show you still images. You're gonna have to imagine the onboard.
Okay, but there the turn is done. This is way past the apex.
I will describe.
This is not the apex
I will
photo,
describe
so
the
just
onboard.
so you know.
So. Yeah,
well, look at the apex is where
so the apex is
white,
that big.
That
okay, so Amar, the apex for me, top picture, lap one. You've got Lewis on the. Okay, I'll describe it for you. You've got Lando, who's ahead. Max heading off into a different country. Directly behind Lando, you've got Lewis pinched in at what I describe as the apex. So that orange blob, I have always consistently said, is the apex.
But you have to go before that, Shez. You have to
go
like
it's at the apex. It's at the apex. That's where you have to be ahead. That is where you have to. That's what the rules say, Amar. But anyway, let's take that out of it, because I don't think the overtaking rules are even what's important here. Because like you said, this is turn one, lap one. But if you are going to take the overtaking rules, which I don't think you need to do, Charles Leclerc's front axle is behind Lewis Hamilton's front axle. It was never ahead. Now, the important thing for me here is that Lewis actually does leave him space. He leaves him loads of space. And my contention is that Charles gets onto the dirt, has a little snap of oversteer and ends up on the grass. But rather than coming back into that space that Lewis has left him, he just decides to head off into the grass, comes out ahead of everybody else, gives the position back to Lando. But the guy that he's actually that he should give the position back to, as well as Lando, he does not give it back to. But my contention again here is that Lewis did everything he had to do, right? He chose the right line. He stayed to the inside. He stayed within track limits. He gave space to his opponent, but his opponent chose to go offline and gain an advantage. Now, if you're going to go offline and gain an advantage, surely you should then have to give that position back, whether it's turn 1, lap 1, or turn 12, lap 50. It doesn't make a difference. You should have to give that position back. And my thing here is, I think the reason this wasn't given back, and I think it was even Karun and Crofty said this in comms, was that Ferrari are never going to really question it, are they? Their faster lead driver over the course of this season is in front, and the FIA are going to say, well, it's turn 1, lap 1. And we don't have anybody banging on at us in our ears saying, oh, you have to give that position back. So nothing happened. But that doesn't change the fact that actually that should have been given back. Now, whether that would have changed the course of the race, I don't think so, other than I think Charles would have got overtaken much more easily by Max towards the end. But I do think in that instance, Charles was cheeky and was able to use the fact that the guy that he didn't give the position back was his teammate.
Again, I don't disagree with you if that's how you feel, right? This is, again, for me, these images are a click too late. Like, this is where I disagree with, and even if there was another driver, I would disagree with you. We've had these debates over and over again. what defines that point at the apex where the car is ahead, one car is ahead of the other one. And for me, those two images do not show that to me. And also in a race like this, you know that when you're coming down this, every race, every corner is different, Shez. You cannot apply the same logic. Anyway, that's,
Well, you
we'll
can,
just
you
agree
can,
to
but
disagree and
that's
move
what
on,
the
right?
rules are. That's what the rules are
I
there
know.
for, isn't it? The
I know.
rules are there to
And
try and
look, was Leclerc
standardize everything.
aggressive?
And yeah, of course he
Absolutely.
was
But this is
aggressive.
why you
But
like
Lewis
Leclerc
was
and
also
Max.
aggressive. That's the point. Both of them were being aggressive. They
We'll
were
get
both
to
doing
that,
the
right?
thing that they promised that they were going to do, and
Sure.
it was
Yes,
really
of
good
course.
to watch.
Yeah.
But Charles didn't play ball, and Amar,
I agree.
I understand
I agree.
your
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I
okay.
totally do. I've got done saying this 15 different ways. If you're a Lewis Hamilton fan,
But
if
yeah, but
I
that's
see,
why you're
I
basically
am
like
agreeing
you're
to.
only agreeing if
But
you're a Lewis
what do
Hamilton
you want me
fan.
to? But
But as a
Shez, this is what
Charles
I
fan,
told
what
you.
do
What
you think?
happened in Zandvoort too? I love this. I want to see more of this. I really do. I mean, this is it.
More
And
of
the
what?
people
People going off
complaining are
track
again
to
bringing up.
make a corner. That for me isn't
Come on.
interesting.
This is not a,
And
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 you
it-
know, in this
and
generation of cars, you go off track, it's going to damage your car more than anything. So
but
this is not done on
and
purpose. Like
don't use
so
Zandvoort.
that,
Omar, don't use Zandvoort because that one number one, it wasn't turn one, lap one, and also Leclerc pulled off an incredible
just
move, and
talking
we
about driving.
are going to come back to that in a second because
Is there a reprimand for Charles? No.
no, completely, actually, completely the opposite. Again, now you can understand why everybody is
Yeah.
so angry about this,
So
right?
mad.
Charles for me made a conscious decision to not use the space that he was given on the outside of that corner, and when I can make a faster route cut across the grass, which is what he did, and because it was his teammate, he just said, "I don't have to give that position back."
Yeah.
If he had George Russell directly alongside him or in Lewis's position, he would have had
Maybe.
to give
Yeah.
that position back, I think.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah. Maybe. It
Um,
didn't happen. So
no,
it is what it is.
no, I agree. It didn't happen, but I can understand why people,
Yeah,
me
but it's
included,
also not a
feel
reason
a
to be
little bit
so
aggrieved.
mad about it. Like
I
it's
agree.
just like, I mean, yeah, I know.
Yeah, I agree. I think
This is
Lewis has
hardly
bigger.
the worst one. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, again, if you're looking at margins, yes, marginally ahead. This was not like, it's not like he came and dive bombed all the way from Los Angeles. It's not. Well, I use that later. Look at that.
yeah.
Anyway, let's move on.
Okay, so we've immediately disagreed, but we're gonna try and agree on the next one. So lap 6, which I found amusing. The comms team are looking at a replay of the start. Suddenly, Max Verstappen dive bombs Lewis Hamilton. They have a little altercation through the turn 1-2 complex, and then head down to turn 4, have another little altercation there. Lewis goes off track, comes off not using the assigned runoff track, which is about as wide as the desk that I am currently at. Not wide.
Yep.
And eventually gets a 10-second penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage.
Oh.
Amar, it's a huge thing to try and unpack. You're going to have to give me your read on how you apportion blame and who should have got a penalty. Was it Lewis? Was it Max? Was the right outcome achieved? Go.
So I would say that I was really surprised that there was no penalty for Max there, or at least hey, give the position back, because it did look like he literally dive bombed, which is something that Max has done. But I was surprised, if I'm being very honest. And I think that then the kicker came in that the Lewis was going to get a 10-second, but that was for a different thing altogether. Which, again, this race was very chaotic. I mean, by the time some of these things were reviewed, it was like 10 laps are over already, kind of thing. But yeah, Shaza, I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, I have a different take on this, right? Which is, I just feel like Lewis is not driving according to the driving standards that are set up, in the sense that he is not able to game it in the way that Max is able to game it. In a sense, you can argue Charles doing the same thing too. And I don't want to criticize him, because he's a 7-time champion. Far be it for me to criticize anyone, right? But it just seems like my observation, my instinctual reaction is, on Saturday, he told us after qualifying, about going against Lando and saying, well, Lando has something to lose. I have nothing to lose. And then come Sunday, he actually had the chance to screw around with Max, and he chose not to in some ways because he knew that was coming. This was not the first time in Lewis Hamilton's career that he's had a dive bombing Max Verstappen come through. If it were me, I would want to place the car in a way that would make Max sweat a little bit, and I'm just surprised that that happened. So yes, my point to you is, I think Max deserved a penalty. I don't know why he was let off. Again, I think there's going to be a technical explanation for it. I think he got the car, the nose of Max's car was right in the area where I think Lewis would have had to leave in space, and so on and so forth, and so there would be no penalty. But I just think that he shouldn't have let that happen, unless, of course, I mean, the other thing to this is, Shez, he was going to get passed over anyway. It would have been a matter of maybe 2 corners down the line because the Ferrari was going to struggle at that point, anyways.
That's
But
not entirely true, though, is it? But because you said a couple of things there that were really interesting. I love your point about Max gaming the rules. This is exactly what you should be doing. And I feel like Lewis, Lewis is a little bit like Max.
George does this too.
Yeah. But I think
have this thing where they want the rules to kind of work for them, right? And I think the other guys, you're seeing this, and again, I'm not advocating for one or the other.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of these drivers, you're gonna have your opinion about it. You're gonna love it or you're gonna hate it, right?
But
But the reality is, what you see Charles and Max do is they're wanting to take the rule to the limit and maybe even push it past the limit, as we just established. And you see people like George Russell just complaining the whole time. And I get
yeah,
why
but I don't mind the complaining. But I think
no, I don't mind it.
I
I'm
think
not
the
saying
issue
that I
with,
mind it, but it's also not going to get you anywhere.
I think the issue with Lewis is that he's been Max starved. Like, he hasn't fought against
Correct.
Max
That's
for a
it.
while now, whereas the others have. Lando, especially last season after Austin going into Mexico, literally learned, all right, if it's just a race to the apex, then that's what I'm going to do. And look, I've had a few arguments with people online about this.
It's going on
move.
right now.
Yeah, it's happening right now in the comments, and
Boy.
I'm glad that you guys are having it. But you know, for what it's worth, I'll give you my take. I think if this had happened in 2021, Max, you would have had a good argument to penalize Max for it. But now that we have these rules, and I do think they're nuts, because this is not a good way to go racing, but Max exploits it really, really well. By the letter of the law, he was entitled to what happened. And I think that actually, we're going to go through it, but I think Lewis was lucky to not get a penalty here. And I think the stewards...
Oh, you're going to anger them even more.
Well,
now.
I think the
Oh my
stewards
God,
were being
Jess.
very, very kind to
I
him.
thought I was taking...
And I think, Omar, this is where Zandvoort comes into it. But let's just have a quick look at a couple of stills. And these are just 2 stills, right? So you'll have to excuse me. These are literally pictures taken off my TV. So the
high quality production,
right? But this is what you guys come here for. Is like the production values. We try so hard.
We're out of money.
So the top picture is Max and Lewis approaching the right-hander of turn 1. And you'll just have to believe me, Max is going in pretty bloody hot. But right now, the apex is all the way up there where I think that's Charles, isn't it? So where Charles is turning in to the white curb, that's where the apex is. And Max is approaching. And in the second shot, we're at the apex now. And remember, the rule says that to be... entitled to that corner, the overtaking driver just has to get their front axle ahead of their opponent's mirror. Okay, you can't see Lewis's mirror, but you can see his front axle, and Max is ahead of that. Now, at this point, the only thing that Max needs to do is reach the white line within track limits. In doing that, which he does, he bangs wheels with Lewis. But because he has got his front axle ahead of Lewis's mirror, that's all he has to do. So actually, it then becomes Lewis's prerogative to avoid a collision, which he doesn't do. That's where I think it gets a little bit dicey for Lewis. Because this is a chicane, there's a second part to it. And in the second part, what happens is that Lewis makes the apex and forces Max off. And Max has to take to the runoff. And this is where I think a lot of people got angry, because Max was suddenly ahead, having cut the corner. But because it's a chicane, or an S-bend is what they call it in the rules say the priority will be given to the first part of the corner. So if you've made the first part of the corner the way that Max has, the second part of the corner becomes a little bit moot. And Lewis, it's all on Lewis to give Max the space throughout that S bend, and that's where I think the Zandvoort thing, the George Charles thing, becomes a little bit more relevant. Charles was not ahead of George going into that corner.
Again, here we
right?
go.
Right, but he wasn't, and he went off track to make the pass. But the stewards went, all fair. It's a racing incident. It's a good pass, and it was. It's a fantastic pass. But these rules, as idiotic as they are with us. So you have to kind of go, well, they're there. But I think the stewards here went, okay, Lewis didn't have any space. He couldn't do anything other than bang wheels with Max. And he also slightly more generously didn't have space into turn 2. And that's what forced Max onto the grass. So actually, Max was fair. I mean, again, Max was fair. And you know what? When it comes to the rules, this has made a lot of people online angry. But these are the rules. And I'm just gonna put up the steward's decision as well. So on the right hand side is what the stewards said about the turn 1 incident between Max and Lewis. No further action. And in that first paragraph, I'll leave it up there for a second. They've explained exactly what I've just said. That because Max was ahead of Lewis's mirror going into that corner, everything else was fair game. It was Max's corner. It was all, the onus was on Lewis to have to get out of the way, and they were lenient in that they said Lewis had limited opportunity to leave additional space on track, and that both cars were side by side throughout the corner, and no sporting consequence resulted from the contact. That is why Lewis got away with it. Yeah. But if you're following the letter of the law, he shouldn't have. So I think the anger should be relief that Lewis didn't get a penalty there.
You're not going to win anyway.
Well, I know I'm not going to. But if you are going to be completely logical about it, that's what it is. What about the 10-second penalty? So there's a few little things to talk about here, but I haven't got shots for this because I think this was fairly cut and dry. Max, I don't think, was going to give that position back. I've heard arguments on from pundits, certainly the Checkered Flag podcast. I think Sam Bird was saying that Max was trying to give that position back. I think there was, in no scenario was Max trying to give that position back in turn 4. In fact, he outbraked himself to keep Lewis behind. It's just that Lewis outbraked himself even more and ended up having to go off track. But you can tell because Max didn't stay on track, and that's what let Ollie Behrman in to allow him to go past. What Lewis actually got a penalty for was coming back onto track so far ahead that that was deemed unfair, and he should have given that position back to Max. Okay, what do you think of that? Do you think it deserved a penalty?
Yeah, I think he should have given that advantage back. I think the as I was watching it live, I think the advantage that Lewis gained was like 3 or 4 seconds. I think whatever it showed up in the timing screens at that point. So I think he needed to give that back in whatever way it was possible. I don't know how that could have been managed, even though I think Ferrari pit wall probably could have helped, not probably, definitely could have helped with that. They didn't seem to know what to do, which is another frustration of mine. But I think they should have probably got on the radio and said, you're going to need to give that back, right? And I think it would have been better off to do that because taking a 10-second penalty is too much. If it's 5 seconds, okay, 10 seconds is just painful because
but that's the penalty, that is the prescribed penalty, and they've done that on purpose to stop people from gaming the system. With a 5-second penalty that you can make up. Well, but in fact, Lewis probably would have made up that 5-second penalty because by the time the penalty was administered, he was about 4.8 seconds ahead of Ollie Behrman anyway. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other issue there this is why I would blame Ferrari. This gets a little bit more detail and nuance, right? Because I think Lewis had some floor damage as well, right, at that point, right? So I think, again, if you're doing the math on this, it probably would have been best to just give the position, and Lewis could have probably finished a couple places higher in the end if all would have worked out. But I think the other thing is also, Shez, the Ferraris had to do Lyco. So part of me was like, okay, either you fight it hard with Max, right, and do not give him the ability to get his nose in front of you, right, like that, to your earlier point with the screenshots, right, like either you don't do that, or then just don't fight it hard and just leave live to fight another day. Given that my Shez, my earlier point with this was that Lewis would have had to know that he's going to get passed by Max at some point. Look at just how Ferraris had to nurse themselves right throughout the race. Like that was going to happen. And they knew that. They were even asked about that on Saturday. You're going to have to do Lyco, right? And they're like, yeah, we're prepared for it. Like, so given that context, the penalty is just not worth it. And maybe even the fighting is not worth it unless, in my mind, do not give Max the opportunity to do what he does, which is game that. And if you're not going to do that, then okay,
I don't
whatever.
think he definitely would have got passed. I think
Yeah, no way.
I think maybe he would have, but I think he would have made Charles's life a lot easier because Max
Okay,
would have had to get past him
possibly.
in that final stint.
Yeah.
I
But
genuinely
Chaz, can I
don't
just
think it helped out, but I do understand why the penalty was given. I just think it was a bit. I think it
it
was a
was a
bit
harsh. It was
unfair.
harsh. Yeah, it was unfair in that regard. Yeah, but
You know, again, I'll put up the steward's decision for your viewing pleasure. This time it's
10
on.
seconds is too much for that. Like, I mean, I think,
Yeah, I agree, but they have to because these are the
yeah, yeah,
proscribed
yeah.
rules, aren't they? So the decision is on the left here.
Which is why it comes back to Ferrari, right? They should have known this and done something about it. Like,
That I think is where this becomes very interesting, right? But just to quickly clarify why I think this is harsh. I think the reason that Max was as far behind as he was when Lewis came back was because he himself had gone off trying to keep his position to Lewis, and then lost a position to Ollie Behrman as well. So they had a little ding dong, and Lewis is then further ahead than I think he would have been had that played out normally if he just cut the track for no other reason. That's why I think it's a little bit harsh. And I feel like in this scenario, the stewards were just looking for a reason to give Lewis a penalty.
yeah.
I think the easy one would have been that you just didn't use the escape road, but they, for some reason, decided to say actually Lewis was going too fast,
I
and
think
maybe it was because that was a defensible position that Ferrari could have put forth as an argument to the stewards afterwards, and that's why they used something else about gaining a position.
but they should have. Then Ferrari should have done just that. I mean, if it were Red Bull, don't you think they would have been blowing up the FIA's phone lines and text messages saying, "Oh, they're making up all kinds of stuff," right? Some of it is that, and look, I don't want to
Yeah,
completely
no,
blame
I
Ferrari
don't
for it.
disagree.
I mean, some of this is just racing, also, right? It's gonna happen, right? It's instinctual. It's stuff. I mean, Shez, my takeaway again, and my question for you is, when you watch this race, right?
Mm.
Yes, the technicalities are there, the rules are set the way they are. But as a viewing audience, and if you're a neutral person, I think you're going to leave that race, or at least that portion of the race, kind of scratching your head, saying, "This doesn't make sense,"
Well,
right?
unless you have
It really
people
doesn't.
like us, like sitting
Oh,
here
yeah, no, no, I
explaining
know that,
like
I know that,
shot by
but
shot
but
why a
I just,
decision was made, and I agree, it's
well, no, I
total
completely agree, but
nonsense.
it is nonsensical in that, because again, earlier in the race, you just saw Max essentially find a different part of the circuit to drive off of into, right? And yes, he gave up. He gave up. Again, I'm not here to argue like, yes, it should have happened, it shouldn't have happened. I'm just saying, as a viewer, it is a bit head scratching to see all these things happen, and then it just doesn't align in some way, right? So I think I'm on board with you with the idea of the stewards were just finding a reason to penalize Lewis. Maybe it had something to do with the fact that, again, we brought up the turn earlier. You put up all the data there. I think they were just looking for it. I just felt bad for Lewis. I was really expecting him to have a good finish. I think we were all thinking about a win possibly. I don't think that was ever
I
possible
was,
given how Ferrari. But
I thought it was on
you were thinking, Shaz,
starting from third.
if they had managed to be past Lando too, you saw what happened in the end. It was still lost by half a minute, right? So it's still gonna happen. Like that was no. I never had that for a second the thought that that would be the case. Yes, it you could have had a Ferrari lead out of turn one, but that was about as far as it was gonna happen. It was just gonna be done. But yeah, I felt bad for Lewis, and I just again, Ches, my observation here is that where's the fire? Where's the fire gone? Like, I mean, come
In
on, like
who? In
you don't have
who?
anything to lose. Like, just fine. If you're gonna take a penalty,
Oh
just
no.
go argy bargy harder and like, okay, yeah, here you want some of that, Max. Like, and again, I'm a Max Verstappen fan, so I know people are gonna like, so I'm gonna get everyone upset at me today, but. I just wanted to see a little bit more fire. Like that's what I
But
want.
I think this is where Lewis is a little bit rusty when it comes, or just not experienced in fighting Max since these new rules have come out. Which is that I think he expected that Max dive bombed him and then cut the corner, that he would be given the position back, and I think he was surprised that he didn't, which is why he fought back as hard, or was expecting to be let through at turn 4, and then when he wasn't, he ended up outbraking himself and going off the track. And I think that was what was going through his head. And I think that's where Ferrari needed to be smarter about it and just say, you're not going to get that position
Yeah,
back, just hold
exactly.
fire. Or at least when he has come back onto track, tell him why he got the penalty, not make up some nonsense to like get him angry. I just don't get it. But the communication between Lewis and Ricky Adami all season just
But we saw that with Carlos too. That was it was pretty evident, right? There's probably a change happening in the off season, I imagine. It's probably a
Bono,
change
bring
happening.
Bono back. It'd be awesome. He's obviously not having the greatest time with Kimi, although he did this race. Just very quickly before we talk about McLaren, what did you think of George's radio rant?
That it just reminded me of what Ferrari does typically, right? Didn't we see this earlier? Yeah, I mean, there's all NSFW language in there, right? So I love that. Does he
Wait,
have
are
to do
you at work at
community
the
service for
moment?
that now? Huh?
Are you at work at the moment? Is that why it's
No. I'm just
NSFW?
saying. I mean, I don't. People are. There might be kids watching our podcast. Who knows, right?
Wait,
Like that's.
Do you guys watch this like at work? No.
I don't know. Why are we doing that right now?
Someone in the comments, please tell me if you're actually at work.
Yes, they are. Because guess what? Why wouldn't you be watching us everywhere you are? I was, uh, I thought it was funny. I mean, look, man, every team does one of these things, right? I think it made sense in the race at the point where they were that they should have done the swap like 5 laps earlier. But this is neither the first nor the last time we'll see something like this happen.
Yeah.
I also think that it's a little bit unfair to blame Mercedes completely. I mean, I think wasn't there another car behind George? Or was it Oscar, right? So I
It
think they
was
were
Oscar.
essentially just it was Oscar. So I think they were, I mean, yeah, I can see why he was frustrated. But I mean, him acting like there was a win or a P2 in there, I think it's a little too much.
Yeah, but it probably cost him the chance to actually get past Ollie Behrman. So I think just
Yeah,
when I was watching it in
fair.
the moment, I thought it was very fair. I thought it was silly that Mercedes were not letting him pass, and I did find the radio amusing. But I also felt a little bit frustrated in the cockpit there with him as well. Like I get it. You guys want to let
Not an
your
easy swap
your
though.
drivers race, but actually, yeah, you're also trying to consolidate P2 in the constructors, aren't you? So think about it a little bit. All right, let's get on to the McLaren boys. So Lando Norris wins by 30 seconds. Pole, fastest lap win. No, actually, no, he didn't get fastest lap. George Russell got fastest lap, didn't he? In anger, clearly. But anyway, Lando pole and the win, led every session Q1, Q2, and Q3. Was absolutely imperious. Oscar Piastri started ninth, no, seventh. Started seventh, didn't he? And finished
Because of the
fifth.
science penalty. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
finished fifth, reducing the points gap from 14 ahead of Lando to 1 point behind Lando. Okay, so Amar, first question: what's happened to Oscar, and have I just got it wrong all season?
Well, wait a second. Let me just check here. I'm looking at the McLaren conspiracy against Oscar page. Oh, nothing. Sorry, I didn't find anything there, Shez. The conspiracy notebook says no, there's nothing happening per se today. Like although I mean, some, um, yeah, I mean, Shez, what do I tell you this? I told you since Monza. I mean, you can argue the merits or demerits of the call that McLaren made. I certainly do not believe that a 3 point swap would, sort of uh, put really Oscar out of a championship contention. I mean, it in some ways it felt like they just asked Oscar to stop racing after Monza, if that's the argument you want to make. And then what other argument can you actually make? I mean, he has struggled throughout the stretch. Even when it's not looked bad on paper, it's looked bad in on the eye test. And this weekend was a complete shocker to me because I think this is a more slippery track in Mexico, and I can see why that could be an issue. Maybe this is not going to be an issue moving forward. But good God, you wouldn't have had it. Look, it would be one thing to finish behind Lando. Cool. It would have been one thing to finish 15 seconds behind Lando too, but to finish this far behind, I think it's psychologically this is a big hit, and I also feel like at the same time we're not giving Lando a lot of credit for his way of approaching this. I've seen a lot of hate for Lando, which is just mind-boggling to me. Like I don't understand. Yes, maybe he's quirky, maybe he says some things that are, you know, not smart. Okay, cool. I get it. Maybe he said, he's sound. But look, man, at one point most people were booing Max Verstappen too. So I don't understand. Now everyone's all of a sudden cheering Max. So whatever. Lando has done an amazing job, Shez. I give you Zanwat. See what happened there. I think there's a good argument to be made that those 18 points, that this could have been a different, this could have been a different lead. No, I think you can almost make that argument there. But he's picked himself up. Shez, we've talked about this. There's an element of no pressure being on your shoulder when you know that you're so far away from the championship that nothing can really bother you. So you're just racing more freely. And I feel like Lando has got that under him. The real question is, can he keep this up for the next 3 races or 4 races, I should say? But at the same in the same token, I don't know how Oscar rescues this because now he's also competing against Max. That's the problem he's got. Is it's not just Lando, it's Max also. And I hate to say, but it's kind of in his head now. I hate to do that because these race car drivers are trained to be excellent championship fighters, and Oscar's got a great resume himself, but good God, that was painful to watch. Like that's not what I'd expected. I didn't expect him to win, but I certainly didn't expect this.
Yeah, I agree. Lando did a great job, but the conundrum for me is not the end result necessarily. It's the drop off in pace that's happened in the last two
Right.
races. So,
Mhm.
I know you love the eye test, but I'm gonna whack some numbers on some of this as well,
Oh,
right? Because you talked about it being a problem since Monza, yes.
well,
Um,
after Monza, but yeah,
yeah,
well,
okay,
Monza too. Yeah, actually,
but
that's
but I,
true.
but,
Monza
but I
also
think
he wasn't great.
well, again, remember
He was behind. I
In
mean,
Monza, he was asked to come out in Q2 to tow Lando because
I
Lando
understand that.
was having trouble getting out of Q2. Um, and I think the pit stop thing, whatever you might think about it, I think has done a number on Oscar's head because I think that has had an impact on how he has performed in races, not necessarily on his pace. I think Austin and Mexico specifically have been pace issues, but pace hasn't necessarily been the problem up until then. In Baku, yes, he crashed out in Q3 and crashed out in the race, but actually, when it came to the gaps between Lando and Oscar, my super times grid says that
There we go.
mate, it's. I think for an inter-team rivalry when you've got two drivers in the same car, it's actually
Yeah, it actually might be.
it's pretty informative. So in Baku, the difference was 0.018%. 0.018%. That works out at being, if you take a 90-second lap, it works out at being about 2/100ths of a second. It's not very much at all. And then when you came to Singapore, he actually qualified ahead of Lando. And I think if they hadn't banged wheels, then probably he would have finished third. Maybe not as close to Max as Lando did, but he probably would have finished third in Singapore if he hadn't gone past. And then we get into the US and we get into Mexico. And if you look at these two tracks last year, the US was a really bad track for him, and Mexico last year we don't really have good data because he locked up in Q1 and was knocked out about 1.5 seconds off Lando's pace. But he was close to Lando's pace up until that point, but that's the only data point that I actually have. So these two tracks have been like that for him before. So the question really, and this isn't just me saying this, Andrea Stella sort of alluded to this as well. The pace thing can come down to the conspiracy theory, as you say, but it can be something less aggressive, a bit more benign than that. That there could be potentially a cracked chassis, for example, something in the monocoque that means that his pace has suddenly dropped off. Now, Andrea Stella says after qualifying, actually all the direct and indirect information that we have, this is from an interview that the race did with him. Scott Mitchell-Malm did a great piece in the race after qualifying. He said that actually all the direct and indirect information that we have says that there is no cracked chassis. But they're going to need to take a proper look at it in the 2 weeks between Mexico and Brazil, and I wouldn't be massively surprised even if they don't find something that that Oscar and Mark Webber especially ask for a monocoque change. But if we then go back to how Oscar has performed in Brazil last year, we only had one dry qualifying session last year, if you remember. Do you know who got pole for that?
Which race again? Sorry.
So in Brazil sprint qualifying, that's the only dry qualifying session we had. It's okay if you don't have to remember. It was Oscar. So Oscar got qualified on pole for sprint quali, and if you remember, that was a sprint race where he led the entire race and then gave the position to Lando towards the end
to help him. Yes.
To help him. Then we went to Qatar. So I've heard a lot of people say, Oscar's run-in last year was really bad. He was really bad at Vegas, really bad at Qatar. But actually, again, if you look at the numbers, he was 0.027 off of Lando in Vegas and 0.071% off in Qatar. These are not big margins. These are tiny, tiny little margins. Less than a tenth of a second he's off Lando. So the argument is that actually if you take the Oscar has taken a step this year, and he was quicker this year in China by miles compared to what he was in 2024, and again in Jeddah, and again in Bahrain, he was quicker than he was last year. So if you take these two as outliers, you'd expect that actually he'd be a bit better. Now, I'm not saying that this is suddenly going to make Oscar win every race from here until the end of the season, but I do think the doomsayers are a little bit over-egging it based on just 2 races when it comes to purely pace. When it comes to the other side of it, the racecraft side of it, the mistakes that have crept into his driving since Monza, yes, I do think there's a bit more of a head problem that's come into it. I think Monza and the papaya rules that have happened and that have come down on Lando's side of the garage more often than not, and again, you can argue whether that's deliberate or not, they have come down on his side, and Oscar has had to argue his side of the case much more often. That, and then Baku happening, the 2 big or 3 big mistakes he had there, plus Max coming at him, plus Lando being a little bit better, I think is playing on his mind a lot more. That's where I come down on it in terms of a logical way of trying to understand where the pace and the performance have dropped off since Monza. Go.
Why are you not giving Lando credit? I mean, why?
Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do that. So the other side of this equation is it that Lando has either stepped up his game, or has he always been driving at this level all season? I don't know. Go. Give Lando his flowers now.
Well, I mean, I mean, give Lando his flowers. Nothing bothers me more than seeing Lando Norris win one before Charles Leclerc, or even George Russell, I would say. But here we are. I just want to be fair, though, because we are. I mean, in a sense, I heard you defending Oscar, which is fine. I get it. I've never been one to sort of, go to the extremes, which a lot of people do. It's like, I can remember this, half a season ago, everyone was waxing lyrical about Oscar Piastri being the next I don't know, grade of F1, right? And look at what's happened there. So I'm always like, I remember telling you that back then too, Shez, we should just pump the brakes on all of this stuff, right? Because the whole season hadn't played out. I think the same is true for Lando. I think that we don't give him enough credit. When by we, I mean generally we in the audience. Do not give enough credit because of the way he talks, or the way he smiles, or the way he laughs, or the way he says some things. And I get it, but and I'm not a Lando fan, but I have to be impressed by how he's put together the last six races too. Sure, you can argue that the Monza swap was played a number on Oscar's head, but at the same time, Oscar was still leading by, I don't know, 20 odd points at that point. So I don't know why we're making this sound like, it's as if the Monza call leveled the championship, whereas that was completely not true. It was like 22 points or 24 points, something like that back then. There's a whole race win essentially ahead. So I don't understand why we do this stuff where we just do not want to give Lando any benefit of the doubt. And I think that you're kind of seeing what I told you at the start of the season, which is Lando went chasing after Max last year and he failed. He failed epically. But there's something to be learned about from that experience after, sort of going after, at that time, a three-time world champion, now a four-time world champion. And I think those lessons might be paying off. I really think that if Lando wins the championship, we'll have to come back to the moment in Zandvoort and say that that probably just freed all the tension up. That just gave him the relief that he needed to not overthink things, to just be the same. Now, again, he's going to have to go through that test again. So this could all change again. Two races later, one DNF one way or another, and we're having a completely different discussion, right? So I'd like to reserve judgment in that regard. But I would just say for the last six races, I would argue that even if the Monza swap had not happened, right, Lando would have technically then been what, still points behind, 1 point behind, something like that, right? He's still done the job of being right there in the championship as well. So I have to give credit, and I told you this earlier too, Shez, when we were lamenting the fact that Lando could win a championship, and we couldn't, I guess, possibly imagine that. But I think this championship will be earned by him if he wins it. And in a sense, he has increased his gap to Max, even though the overall gap is reduced by 4 points. It's still, Lando's building that up. So if he does what he's doing, maybe one or two more times, I think in the next two races, I think that's going to be a pretty formidable sort of thing to come off. And he's already had his DNF out of the way. So I'd have to imagine that the law of averages will not necessarily catch up to him.
So again, I don't necessarily disagree, right? And I was the first to say that if Lando suddenly gets back into a frame of mind that allows him to perform at a level commensurate with a championship contender, then I would hold my hand up and say that I didn't expect him to do it, but he has done it. But what you can't do, Omar, is say that the last six races represent Lando's entire season.
No, not at all.
Because
But that's why I said we have to wait for the
because
season.
Lando, for the first 2/3 of the season, has not been a good driver, right? So all of the things that we're accusing Oscar of now, the drop off in pace in the US and in Mexico, just have a look at Canada, Bahrain, look at Belgium's sprint. Lando was up to 6/10 off Oscar in those races, right? That's just a pace deficit. Let's not forget the mistakes he made in that period as well. He crashed out in Jeddah qualifying when he was potentially on course for pole. He made mistakes in Canada in qualifying. He made mistakes in China in qualifying. He crashed into the back of his teammate in Canada, putting himself out of the race. So all of those things haven't suddenly been erased by the last six races. And this is where I get a little bit like, okay, Lando's doing well right now, but the reasons that I had for not seeing him as good as Oscar, or that perhaps Oscar was driving with more freedom, at a point where actually he had the championship lead, right? Oscar had the championship lead. You could argue that he felt the pressure and he didn't let the pressure affect him up until right now. Lando had the pressure for one race in Australia. It's the only time he has led the championship up until this weekend, and he let the pressure get to him for 2/3 of the season. So what you can't do is say the last 6 races are an
I
accurate
didn't say that.
representation of
Don't
how
think you were
Lando
listening to me.
has performed. No, I did, I did. You have accused me of saying I don't like the way he looks or the way he talks or
I didn't say you
whatever,
said that.
whatever.
I said we shouldn't crown Oscar what he was like after
Right,
the first
but
six
I
years.
think
Yeah,
Oscar
you made
actually
my
has
point.
performed really, really well.
But I mean, you got to take these six.
And
But that's the whole point, Shez. This is why they're level on points, minus the DNF. You put
correct,
all of the
correct,
mistakes
because
together, and we are where we are.
right. So you can't suddenly say Lando's been inherently just waiting to have this happen, because I never
I
thought it
did
was.
not say that.
I wasn't expecting any of this to happen right up until the point at which it now has, because all of the evidence I had in front of me was that Lando was not going to be able to do this.
Yeah, but I mean, even in so wait a second. So I think this is you I know what you're doing here. Uh, uh,
What am I
even in
doing here?
Canada,
I don't
right?
know what I'm
And
doing here.
Michael says this in the chat. No, DBC says this in the chat, right? I mean, I think this is true, which is Lando has been faster at many occasions. He's just been more errant, and he's just been more error prone. And I think again, I told you if Lando wins, it's because he has cured his mistakes. If Oscar wins, it's because he's overcome his own mistakes. I mean, this is what it essentially boils down to.
I
If
think
the
we
only thing
might
you
reach
cannot expect is
agreement.
some magical sort of like, I mean, come from behind kind of stuff that Max is doing right now with the help of Red Bull too, right? So I think that there's just that. If there are two drivers that we have argued over and over again that are more or less equally matched, just different styles, different ways of going about things, and neither of them to me seems like I would put them in that next level, which we all know is
Yeah,
Max,
I
and
agree.
then
I agree.
George and
I agree,
Charles
but
and all that,
I
right?
would
So yeah, that's kind
argue
of where we're at.
I would argue that that is a yet for Oscar, because he is
Yeah,
only
yeah,
3 seasons
everyone.
in.
Oh, you're not going to put Lando in it despite his championship. You're gonna like, I mean, so
But
says
no,
what
no,
is more
no.
likely
Well,
now.
no, I don't. I don't think that Lando is as good as Oscar. Sorry, is as good as Max right now. I don't think anybody can
Or
make an
better than
argument
Oscar.
that he is. Is he better than Oscar? Not on the basis of the season to date. No, he's better in this period of the season, but he hasn't been
Exactly.
better for 2/3 of it. So, no, I don't think so. But now that we're evening it up, we're almost level on points, and we're going to see if McLaren can just get out of their own way and stop their ridiculous papaya rules, then maybe we'll actually see what these two guys are made of. And if Oscar can find his way back to what he was doing so well at the beginning of the season, for whatever reason, then I think actually it goes to whoever deserves it the most. But to write off Oscar based on the fact that
I
momentum
did
is
not
not with
write him
him,
off at all. I just said that
I'm not
we
saying you did, but this is
um
out to everybody.
oh,
But to write Oscar
we
off just based on the momentum of the last few races, I think is folly. I think he needs these 2 weeks. I think he needs these 2 weeks to get his head straight, get back in the simulator, look at the data, and understand what the heck has been going on. But I think he is able to do that. He has it within him to do that.
And I think one thing that would be helpful, and I genuinely believe this, right? There's 4 races left, right? Either one of the McLaren drivers winning the next race, I think pretty much excludes Max at that point, right? And the reason I bring that up is there is the Max factor creeping in there, right? I think we're putting in too much on the papaya rules. The fact that Max has been coming, and you could argue even in this race he did kind of come at them, right? Even though yes, it's still a net loss in some ways. It's not the race that Max would have wanted. I think that P2 could have been a little bit better for him in the end, but um, I think the max factor is well and truly there too. I don't think you can discount that just yet. So I think that they're going to need to put some distance between them in this next race. So we'll see. I mean, I'm not suggesting that Oscar won't come back. It is possible. Again, all these tracks are so different. The conditions and all of that kind of play into. We have a Vegas track coming up, which is traditionally where Mercedes should be good, but who the heck knows nowadays? Like, it's just no one really knows how to kind of go about these things. So one of the things that is really good about all of this, Shez, is that this is an amazing finish to the season. I think whatever happened. So all we want is for them to go essentially tied on points or within a point or two of each other, right? into Abu Dhabi, and that would all be great. But these next four races should be fun. It really should.
Let's go. Right. We're at an hour and 4 minutes. In
We
fact,
have to do one more thing, Chaz.
I cannot leave without giving Ollie Behrman
Yes,
some love,
thank you. Yes.
mate. Awesome, Ollie freaking Behrman.
That was amazing. I didn't even know he was in the top five at one point. To be honest, there was so much happening at turn one. Right after a while, I was like, "This is not." We were trying to sort out who should get penalized and who should give up track position or whatever. Right. That was an amazing race. What was amazing to me is not just see him race and race Max for a while and put Max behind for a long time. I mean, you can argue Haas probably gave up track position where they maybe shouldn't have given it up. I don't know. Maybe they couldn't have made it through the race. Who knows? Certainly, Ferrari would have loved for Ollie to stay in there for as long as he could. So I don't know that they needed that. But that was an amazing race, Shez. But the more amazing thing was for me to just see. This was the one time where the FIA and F1 TV and whoever the broadcasters are showing the family really helped. Like it really added
It
on to
was
the
fun,
race,
wasn't
right?
it?
To see his dad, I think was it
Yeah,
his
it was.
siblings I think, later
Yeah, yeah.
on,
Well, I
or
didn't
like
see his siblings. I
they
just
were
saw his
just
dad in his
crying
picture.
away, man. That was amazing. Such a wholesome, such a nice moment in an otherwise mad getting mad about weekend, right? I just loved it. How did you take all that
Well,
in,
you
man?
know what? The only thing that was running through my mind the entirety of that race was that Ollie Behrman in the summer break was off in some Swedish go kart track trying to break the
That's
lap
right.
record there, right?
That's right.
And he was making all kinds of like driver excuses for why he wasn't able to break the record. Uh, and he was like taking parts off his car and stuff like that. And then somebody, the guy that had set the record after Ollie breaks his record by like a hundredth of a second, turns up and just smashes Ollie out the park. And all I was thinking was, mate, if that guy had been there in Mexico, he probably would have won the race.
Yeah, yeah. I can also see why as Haas, like you are fighting for marginal points. So getting up, you have to kind of think about it that way too. So I get it. I mean, I kind of wish they had gone for the podium, and it would have been amazing to see him on the podium in a season where we've seen Hulkenberg also make the podium. Like that would have been just sort of amazing and
Haas's
cool.
first ever podium, yeah, it would have
Haas's
been,
first ever
yeah, it would have
podium.
been
Yeah,
really
yeah.
impressive, yeah.
It could have been great.
And
But
yeah, I can think of no one better to get it. Right, Amar, on that note, I think we do need to bring this to a close. Um,
like Sainz did at the end of the
like,
race, another Williams
yes,
again bringing a
we
safety
didn't even
car.
talk about the VSC. No, we probably need a part two to this. Anyway, we are going to have to call it a day. As usual, please like, please subscribe, please leave us a comment. We'll read every single one. We'll reply to as many as we possibly can, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Fix it, Fred.
Stop it. Stop talking about Fred all the time.